Okay, we're finally actually getting to the images. Just been having a time doing the videos. For some reason, I keep making little mistakes, and I think I'm recording, and I'm not. So hopefully, we'll get there here. So you can use a variety of image types: the GIF, JPEG, different spellings, the PNG, XBM, SVG. I don't think you can use the BMP format except in Internet Explorer. Most of this you can read yourself. I'm going to get to the more technical details here. So we're going to use a singleton tag called IMG, which stands for image. And again, because you're going to be doing XML, I encourage you to get in the habit of writing the singleton out like this. You don't actually have to do that in HTML5. It'll allow a singleton without the special singleton ending. A singleton is a tag that only has a head. It doesn't have a closing tag or a tail tag. So here the image has a primary attribute, which is source, which is going to be the URL, just like the href was to the image. And although images have many tags, a lot of them aren't used anymore, except that you should always use the alt. So you can see here a couple examples. There again is the way it's normally done. And then here we have a complete absolute URL that links to essentially an image on a different server. And then there's an example of a more relative one here, okay? Now normally you should not link to images that are offsite unless you have permission. One example of where that works is when people include the CSS and HTML5 badges on their sites, while you can download the images, you can also simply link to the W3 you know, coordinating body and use those images there. You want to always include an alt attribute. This is helpful for people with visual impairments or using an assistive reader to look at the page. So here I have an image called bill.jpg, which is presumably a photo of Bill. And then I have some alt text that explains that. And so the assistive reader will render that as basically audio that the person who's using the reader can then understand there's an image there and gives them some information. Okay, this is kind of confusing. In the old days, we used to always include the height and the width so the browser could render the page better because instead of waiting to download the picture information, it would already know how big the picture was going to be, and it could essentially leave a place in the rendering and then fill it in when it got the picture info. The problem with this is now it can't resize the images once you declare the height and the width, especially in this way, which was done with pixels. So now with responsive design, we don't do that. And so we no longer include the height and the width, okay? Now, essentially what you can do is you can apply a max width attribute in a style sheet to all your images so they won't be resized bigger than their actual size. And there's some other options we can do too that we'll explore later on here. So, and then basically I can size the image by saying, hey, I want the image to be a certain percentage of the page, and it will be sized down. So, for instance, if I say, hey, I want this image to be no more than 20% of the page, on a phone, it will be a lot smaller than on a desktop and that. Okay? So you could use images in hyperlinks, and what you do then is you embed the entire image within the opening and closing tag of the hyperlink. So this will be an image that goes to the link HTML page, whatever that is, and this picture will somehow represent that, and the user can click on the picture. Now, a lot of times for these, we use smaller images, and you also have an instance where you'll create a smaller image so the user can look at the entire big image if they want, but they can preview the small image, and that's called a thumbnail. And the various graphics editors will create these automatically for you. I'm not going to talk about the use map and the is map here. This is sort of an advanced topic. Basically, I can create an image that has clickable regions on it that I can use as a map. This doesn't seem to be very common anymore these days, like it used to. So again, I skipped over using the images to make image maps. That's still in the presentation. You can read that. You're welcome to take a look at that on the net. I'm just not going to cover it. Again, I don't think it's really that prevalent anymore these days. So we can create images using tools, so like drawing software, Photoshop, various SketchUp, Adobe has several tools. There's some popular open source tools. You can acquire images from the internet and commercial sources where you pay for them. You can also find free and royalty free, which means they're free to be used images on the internet. We can scan images. Nowadays, everybody can readily take images with their phone, so it's digital photography. You can actually pull images out of video, which is called video capture. So again, you should always be aware of copyright. For most of the stuff we do here for education, that's covered by fair use. But certainly if you're going to put anything on the public web, be careful because people have a right to their property and you shouldn't just steal it and pirate it and use it for them. So you can find royalty-free image and non-commercial images, which are clearly marked. You can go to the Creative Commons Wikimedia, I think it's called, that has free media that's available for use with different Creative Commons licenses. So for instance, some people are willing to let you use their work if you don't charge money for it. And then they've kind of figure, rightfully so, hey, I put all the time into making this. If you're going to make money with it, you should share that with me, which is pretty reasonable. Okay, we'll go into the CS layout here. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we're going to continue. So we'll talk about CS page layout later on, but you'll see that what we're beginning to look at now with images is sort of a precursor to that. So the first thing we'll have is we have a way to float the image. So we can float the image to the left or the right. And what this does is it causes the image to move out of its normal location in the page rendering flow and either go to the left or the right. Now, if the image is an inline attribute by default, but you can set that to be a block element. And one of the things that came up today in the class is when I tried to center the image using the block technique, it didn't work because the image was inline and I had to set it to be block display for it to work. And I'll show you that here in a second in Dreamweaver. So basically, if I say that the image should float to the left, it will be pulled out of the normal flow, positioned on the left, and it will displace the content that would have been there, and it'll move to the right and below the image. And then similarly, if I move the image and float it to the right, I'll displace the image that would normally be there, and it'll move to the left or after and under the image. Now, essentially, I can control the flow of this content with clear. So I can say clear right, that means don't flow anything onto the right of the image. And this doesn't apply just to images. You can do this with any block element. So you can use the float with block elements. Similarly, I can clear the content on the left, or if I clear both, then it should display on neither the left or the right, only after. And then none is the opposite. It should flow on either side. Of course, if it's already left the line by default, it won't have anything on its left side, okay? Let's see. You want to always put padding on images because otherwise they'll run into adjacent text and things like that. If you use a border around an image, which you can do, then you should put margin in for the same reason. You want some space between adjacent elements and the border and or the edge of the image. Okay. CSS lets you use images as background, just like as we use with background color. And there's a URL pseudo function in CSS, and it takes the name of the file and in fact the path to the file. Now, by default, when you use this technique, it's going to repeat the image in the X and the Y axis. That's called tiling, and to fill up the entire space. So in the old days for the web, we did this all the time, and we'd use relatively small images that were sort of engineered so that when you tile them, you didn't really see the seam between the tiles. So it created a continuous background with a relatively small image that could be downloaded rather quickly. Nowadays, people sometimes use large images for the background of pages, and there's actually a professional approach to web development that uses a combination of images and markup, and you create something called a comp. So what you'll do is you'll start out by creating a visual graphic design of the web site or web page, and then you'll figure out which parts are going to be done with CSS and text markup and which parts will remain images. So, and that's a very graphic focused kind of web development. Okay, so when I use the image background, I can control the way it repeats. Again, if I don't specify it, it'll be tiled on both the horizontal and vertical axis, and it'll simply be repeated to cover the entire background. If I do no repeat, then it's going to appear one time, and usually I'll do some sort of positioning, which we'll see in a moment. If I do repeat X, it'll just tile once across the X-axis, so that usually is going to make a sort of tiled background across the top or across the bottom of the browser window. Similarly, I can tile it vertically on repeat Y to create a vertical sort of tile border on the right or left-hand side of the browser window. As I mentioned, we can control the location of the image with the background position. Again, we usually only do this when we have a no repeat. And so there's several ways of doing this. There's two systems. One is to use a percentage. So this range from 0 to 100. And this first one is the top, center, and bottom. And then the second one is the left, right, and I'm sorry, left, center, and right. And so you can see that I can express this from 0 to 100%, or I can use the keyword values left, center, bottom. I'm sorry, top, center, bottom, left, center, right. And you can also use absolute measurements here too. Now again, we want to get away from using those, so that's not recommended because that's typically not going to work for a responsive design where we're trying to design a page that'll work in different size form factors. Okay, so here's an example, and we can actually size our background image. So background size. And again, the 100% here refers to the container, not the image, okay? Again, it's best to use a percent or an EM here, okay? So this would be a single background image, and if it doesn't already, I'm going to size it up to fit the entire background. That's what this code says, okay? All right, honestly, I don't quite remember what this is. It has something to do with the background origin. And so you can see we have the border box, the padding box, and the content box. This doesn't really seem much different than the box model we've already seen. So I don't really remember why I have this in here. uh, oh, okay. So the background origin sizes the background image to the specified region. And then this background clip, we can use to clip the specified region from the image. Okay. This is some advanced stuff that I haven't really done, so I'm not sure how all this works. So let me go ahead and stop now and show you in Dreamweaver some of the basics of the image stuff that I've covered already. All right. Okay, so I'm actually working off of my Google Drive here. I find that very convenient. I have this HTML5 Part 3 images folder for this project. And I wanted to show you the structure. So I've got my index.html page, which I'm going to edit in a few minutes. I've got a story HTML, which I'm going to put some images in as well. And then I have a file here called tom.jpg, which is, I think you might have seen this. It's me wearing my wizard hat there. And then I also have a subdirectory called images that has 3 images in it. And as we use those, we'll look at those. So the reason I'm showing you this is I wanted to go in, as I covered doing the images, how the image paths work. So this tom.jpg is in the same folder as the index.html, and we'll start with that. So I'm going to go ahead and open Dreamweaver up again. I've already got these files ready to roll. And we'll go to our index. And so right now, I showed you this before here. I think I might still have it open. Yes. Okay. So here's what I have so far for my home page. Let me reload this and make sure. And I'm going to go ahead and put my image in here. And essentially, I'm just going to put the image in the middle of the page, below the header, and before this main section that has this text. Okay? So I'm here, and I'm just going to go ahead and actually, I didn't say that very well. I'm going to actually put it in main, but before the paragraphs. Okay, so image is the tag, and then source src equals quote. Now Dreamweaver is going to offer to browse for this, and as long as it gives me a relative path, that's okay. So there's the Tom JPEG. Notice it gives me the little preview. That's real handy. I'll hit OK. And that's a relative path, so it doesn't say C:drive. If it did, that wouldn't work when I move it to the website. Okay? Okay, so I can just go ahead and finish this off, and that's the complete tag, and that's all it has. But I want to go ahead and add my alt tags in, alt text. So and this would be for somebody who's differently able in terms of their vision. So photo of Tom wearing his red pointed wizard's hat. Okay, let's see, is that right? I always get confused about those damn possessives. Okay, well that's good enough. Hopefully whoever's visually impaired will be okay with that. Sorry, I'm not trying to make jokes about people that are visually impaired. I am myself. I wear glasses, and you might be able to tell I've got the screen set pretty high. Okay, there's the image. So by default, the image is appearing here. And basically, I've got some padding here on the paragraph, I think, but there's no other padding on the image, and so it's butted up right dead against my border for my header. That also means I don't have any margin on the header, okay? So I might want to go ahead and put a bottom margin on the header to introduce some space here, but I'm going to probably put some space around the picture, and let's just go ahead and start to play a bit here. So let's go into Dreamweaver. Let Let me just make sure my video is still being recorded here. I've gotten kind of camera shy now, or gun shy. Okay, so what I did is I went ahead and downloaded the Ipsum Lorem text. This is some garbled Latin that is just, there's this tradition that when you do typography and you design fonts, you can use this to test the way the fonts look. And the idea is that the text doesn't make any sense, so it doesn't distract you from just looking at the typographic design, okay? And so I'm using it here because I'm too lazy to write a story out and get some pictures that go with it. Let me quickly say that you're not allowed to do this. For your assignment, you need to go ahead and write a story as I've directed. So basically I used the template, and the reason I had to stop and do this was I had created a new page and it wasn't connected. So because of my template now, I have the all of the menu, and I've got the CSS linked in and all that. Now, one thing that's interesting here is let's take a quick look in the web browser. You can see that this doesn't have the text effect that I did because I defined that on a class of paragraph called norm text, and none of these paragraphs have that in them. They're all just plain. So if I do this, class equals, and Dreamweaver should prompt me with that option. That's sometimes it does anyway. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add the norm text in and save this. And now the first paragraph will have the norm text style. So I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to show you again what this looked like. So now we can see very distinctly the difference here in the style. Let me go ahead and zoom the page up a little bit for you. And so again, you can see I've got that first letter styled and all that. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to put some images in here. And I've already done the image on the home page here with me as the wizard. And I showed you that that image was in the same file as this page is. So let's go ahead now and grab a couple of images and start to play with floating them in this text, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start with an image right here, image, and then source equals, and now Dreamweaver is going to let me fetch the image, and so I'm going to my images folder, and I'll go ahead and grab this little joke that I got here. And you can see that bizarre file name. That's the kind of name you get when you download an image from Facebook. And let's see, we'll call this, we'll give this an ID. So ID equals, normally I wouldn't do this, so I wouldn't have a separate rule for each image. Instead, I create a class of images like left, center, or right. But to keep this straight for this example, I'm going to do this way, okay? And let's see, we called that Tom photo. Let's call this joke photo, okay? All right, well, let's start by just seeing what it looks like. And we'll go ahead and refresh this. And there's the joke photo. So it occurs before the paragraph. And as a result, the paragraph is completely rendered after it. So we want to get this to flow, so we have to float the image to do that, all right? And so I'm going to go ahead and I could just arbitrarily float this right or left. And now we're going to use the joke photo as an ID selector for the image, so you can see all of this in one spot. Again, what I would probably do is create class selectors instead. So I'd create a type of class of image. Usually I'll have one like left and one right and one centered. Okay. All right, let's get the float in right away. So we'll make this float right. Okay. And I always want to put padding around the images so that the text doesn't run up against them. So padding, and we'll just do this quickly all the way around. So I'll set it one time to EM, which is shorthand for all four sides, right? You should know that now. All right, let's save that, and let's see what's happening here with our joke. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention about the path, so I'll show you that in the markup. Okay, so again, here's my first paragraph, which is being displayed in the norm text style. And then I have this image here, which is now floated to the right. I'm going to put another image in, and I'm going to float it to the left. And again, let me show you the path for the image. So I should have pointed that out. You probably saw that because I typed it in. But notice that, oh, wrong file, sorry. I need the story file. There we go. See that images slash? So that's that images subfolder. So the next image will have the same folder. So I used the Tom photo in the high-level root folder, but then I have an images folder for images. And, oh, well, here I see I have to fix this little capital P. Somehow I got that when I was adding the text. And we'll just go ahead and add a class in here. Equals. I don't know why Dreamweaver was not prompting me for the classes. Usually it does, so that's kind of nice. You know, you can use the class settings that you set up, and it's almost like you created your own sort of visual language. Okay, let's go ahead and add the paragraph in here. I'll put it between, I'm sorry, the image. I'm going to put it between the paragraphs. So image source equals, and then it went to the images folder because I had already gone there. And let's get this image here. This is a chainsaw Damascus knife blade, a folding knife that my good friend Jim Battles forged, and he's been doing some interesting Damascus work here. So we're going to give this a ID equals knife photo, kind of following my naming conventions. So for the IDs for the images, I named them all the same way: Tom photo, knife photo. Oh, well, I only did 2 so far, so those other ones will name the same way, right? Okay. All right, let's save this, and we'll pop back into this and then reload it, and there's the image. Now that's a huge image, and I haven't floated it yet. Okay, so I'm going to play with this image, and I think I'm going to go ahead and set the width down. And I think if I set the width and I don't set the size, it will retain the aspect ratio, so it won't skew the image. Okay, so I have to write some rules for my knife photo ID. So we'll go back into our CSS, and to save time, I'll just copy this, paste it in, change it to knife photo, and then we want this to float left, and we want to go ahead and set the size to this, the width. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, even though the picture is that big, I don't want it that big. And so let's say I want it to be about 30% of the width. So I'll say width 30%. And just so you understand, the 30% is not 30% of the picture. It's 30% of the container that the picture is going to be stored in, which is the main element of the page. So these things are all within the main section. I've done some rearranging here. I had some issues with the video, and I'm kind of has to splice the video to finish this. I have my 3 video pictures: joke photo, knife photo, and vids photo. And I'm floating the joke photo right,
the knife photo right, and the video photo left. And I did rearrange the order they were in the HTML. So one thing I want you to note here is I've got the width set here to 30% on two of the photos, but not the joke. And so when we look at this in the browser, it's kind of interesting how that works. So here is the new page. And so here's the joke photo, the vid photo, and the knife photo. And again, these two are resized by the CSS. They're actually much bigger than that. And this is not. This is the default size. So I can kind of simulate how this will work on different screen sizes by resizing the page. I'm in Firefox here. And watch what happens here. Let me get these up so you can see all three at once. There we go. Now watch what happens. Oops, son of a bitch. Watch what happens now as I resize it. So you can see that the bottom two videos are actually getting smaller. So they're going to scale with the screen and we have different form factors. But the first video doesn't change size. Let's go ahead and change that. And it seems like I got lucky and I picked a really good value that worked with all three videos. So I'm going to try that again here with the same value. So I'll set it to width 30%. And then we'll try that again. Go ahead and refresh now. And actually, if I refresh, whoops, there we go, reload. So you can see already that it's changed that size. So now let's go ahead and full screen this. So there's the size at full screen. It looks like it did make it slightly smaller than the default. I could probably make that 35% or something like that to play with it. And then again, if I resize the screen, you can see that now the images resize to match the screen. Okay? And they don't seem to be distorted here, so it's actually changing it with the aspect ratio. So for instance, they are getting shorter as they get thinner. Okay? Well, that's pretty nice. So I wanted to show you that and add that on here. And this is just using the most primitive layout technique, which is the float left, float right, float left, and then again float left. And you can see I have the text flowing around the images. I have padding so it doesn't run up deadhead with the edge of the image. I could put borders around the images if I want. That's really a stylistic choice. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll have to also add a margin around the border so we don't have the text butting up against the border. So we'll do that real quick just to see what that looks like. Let me just click over here into the Dreamweaver window. And we're going to come on down here. You can see now where I'm starting to get a lot of style here. I probably should have considered using a class selector and created one class for the left and one for the right. The thing is, though, the 30% is dependent on this being in this position, excuse me. So it probably wouldn't work to try to make that generalized because that's going to be specific either way. Okay, so let's do our borders. Oh, you know what? To save time, I'm going to just copy the border stuff here. So this is the border on my photo. And I'll go ahead and copy that. And also, let's see, let's just put it on the first one, which is the joke photo. And I don't think I want this to be a double. Let's see. We could try something else. I haven't really messed with the other types of borders. So let's see what we have here. It'd be nice if it gave you some sort of preview. How about the inset or the outset? Let's try the outset here. And then I'll go ahead and I was going to just do one to start with, but now I want to see how the different border styles look. So yes, I am anal about these things. Alright, let's make this one inset. So joke is outset, and the knife is actually the bottom photo. It's inset. And then what style do we want here? Not double. I've used the double. I've used the solid before. Oh, what's groove look like? Alright, we'll try this. Okay, so the way they're on the page, we'll have outset, then groove, then inset. Alright, did I save this? Whoops, can't do it there. Control S, yep. Pop on over to Firefox, reload, and okay. So we've got the rounded corners that are put on there. And this is kind of weird the way the color is going. I don't know sure what's happening there. And you can see the lack of the margin really dramatically there. So we have to go back and put a margin on them. And let's see. I might be a little creative here and only put a left margin on this one. Let's see. No, it should really have a... Okay, so they need a top and a bottom. What the hell. We'll try a margin on all four sides and see what it looks like. Alright. So, let's see here. Joke photo. Margin. How about 75 EM? That's kind of small, but it's not really. It doesn't look bad as it is, so I'm kind of inclined to do it that way. Okay. Margin 0.75 EM. Should have copied this. Come on down here, do it again. Oops. Okay. I don't like that. Again, I'm just kind of anal about trying to keep the source code neat and readable. And oops. What do we do? Control. Shit. Control S. There we go. Alrighty, let's take a look at this now. Oh, you know what? I forgot to look at the different formats. So this is inset. That doesn't seem like it's working, actually. I think that's the groove, and that's the outset, if memory serves. Yeah, those are kind of funky. Alright. And I was just wanting to look at the different styles. Maybe I have to make the width better to see them. So border width, let's make that thick on all of them. So maybe we can see the style better. Thick. Oops, not tick. Yeah, I'll just change them all back to solid here in a minute, but I wanted to kind of get an idea of this. So again, the joke is at the top. That's outset. Then the next one is the vids, which is groove, and then the bottom is inset. Okay, alright, let's reload. Let's full screen the page too. So this is the outset, groove, and inset. I don't see much there. Yeah, I don't really care for those, or they're not showing up. I can't tell which. But I'm definitely not excited about those. So let's just go ahead and set this back to solid. And I think I'll try thin here as well, so that might work a little bit nicer. So again, solid, thin. Oh, I know. Well, one problem I have too is they're still set to be fucking purple. Yuck. Alright, let's use black for these. It's kind of funny, I have different files for these projects, and I know I changed that purple color from my wizard hat photo here. Well, while we're here, we're going to just do that. I'm pretty sure I made that red. Okay. So that was in one of the other versions. Alright, you know, third time's the charm, or fifth time, whatever. So let's go ahead and reload this one more time. And so now you can see this is the thin style. And we've got the margin around it. And that's just the solid. I think that's okay. It's kind of subtle. I might make it medium instead. By the way, I did change the font size for these to make them a little bigger. I think now it matches this style. I probably should make that bigger too, but I didn't like that they were about the same size as the text here. So looks like it's pretty good. We've got it. We got it set to wrap around the images and dynamically resize, which means the page will work fairly well on small form factors. Now, I'm not sure why, but my preview display in Dreamweaver is totally just messed. So if we go look at this page here, and we go to design view, it's not showing any of this styling. It's like the Dreamweaver can't find the CSS for some reason. It seems like usually it does a better job than this, so I'm not sure what's going on today. Let's try the live view and see if that's any better. Oh, excellent. Okay, so the live view is much better. So we're actually seeing the page, and it looks really just like it does in the web browser. And let me think about this. I think they have this multi-screen preview. Let's take a look at that. So the multi-screen preview kind of shows you what it looked like at some standard values. So this is like a phone size. And again, it's readable. It's a real long scrolling page, and again, you can see the resized images and the borders there. So the borders don't do much for our phone panel, so we probably could remove those in a media style sheet. This looks pretty good. This is a tablet. And one thing I like about this is my navigation panes. Oh, that's kind of funny now. When I run over these, it's making them smaller. That's weird, because I thought I had that set relative. Alright, so I'm going to have to fix that now that I've changed the size of the links. I thought that would be relative to that value, but it's not. It's relative to the norm, so I hadn't caught that. And then here's a that's kind of a small desktop there, 512 I think, but we can see on the desktop I'm using. So that live view seems to be working a little bit better. I'll have to remember to try and use that occasionally here as we go on. All right, I think this is real good. Again, I've got a little bit of a splice here that I want to put on the end of a video that ended prematurely. I'm not really sure what happened there. Been having a little bit of trouble